What's up, boxing fans? It's your boy Rick here. Yeah, so let's just go over this real quick. Roy Jones Jr. victorious in his final fight. This happened a couple of days ago down in Pensacola, Florida. You know, if you know boxing, if you're watching this or actually listening, you know Roy Jones Jr. is from Pensacola, Florida. So in his farewell fight, 49-year-old Roy Jones Jr., a ring legend, 66 wins, 9 losses, 47 KOs, scored a one-sided 10-round unanimous decision over Scott Sigmon, 30, 12, and 1, and 16 in a clash. That's right. It was cruiserweights. Roy Jones Jr. was a super middleweight in his day, and this was Thursday night, and it's 2018, and just reminiscing on Roy Jones' spectacular career, I'm just happy that he got out of this. He was on a MMA card, actually. I believe Dana White threw the card, put it together, wants to get involved in boxing. He's getting his feet wet or whatever. But besides all that, let's just wrap up Roy Jones Jr.'s legendary career real quick. I mean, it's just amazing. This guy, in his day, Roy Jones Jr. could do it all. Make no mistake about it. I'm in front of the computer. Let me pull up box records real quick. So, Roy Jones Jr., I mean, he was like so amazing. He would put his hands behind his back. He would do things in an unorthodox way, and fighters could not deal with it. I remember one time he played a basketball game before his fight on HBO. Roy Jones Jr. won the fight, of course, and he was robbed going back to the Olympics. And I think later on they gave him his gold medal or whatever, but he was robbed, unfortunately. He was always a gold medal winner in my mind. And then he was, in my opinion, Montel Griffith? He had that first fight. He pulled the trigger too quick on it in one of the rounds early, first, second round, or whenever it was. Could have been a 6. Montel was giving him some difficulty with the southpaw stance. It was towards the middle of the fight. I didn't get onto the box records yet. I can tell you by looking at this. Okay, well, anyway, going back to that, he was robbed in his first loss. It wasn't really a loss. Let's just say that, because Roy Jones was going to clearly win the fight. And then in a rematch, if my memory serves me right, he won in the first round to make that statement. But he had bumps like that in his career that were just from the Olympics and then that loss that were just not right. But Roy Jones unfortunately hung around too long. Another notable point in Roy Jones' career, he fought a guy named Vinny Paz, from what I remember, in Atlantic City. And at one point in the fight, Vinny Paz didn't lay a glove on Roy Jones Jr. It was just easy pickings for Roy. And Roy Jones Jr. was the man. He was one of those fighters that it was such a rare athlete. So many gifts. And unfortunately, he did stick around for too long. Okay, the first loss came at the Taj Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City versus Montel Griffith. He was disqualified and he got that loss, which was BS, okay? Everybody knows that. Then that rematch, he knocked Montel out in one round, 1997. And that was it for him. So Roy Jones Jr., what I'm trying to say, was one of the best. He was a great fighter, and he had that early fight with Hopkins in 1993, and that was just talked about by many boxing fans. So then they had the rematch finally when they were both beyond what they were. And of course, Roy Jones had less than what Hopkins had because he already was knocked out a few times. And Hopkins went on to win the rematch several years later. This was in 2010, April 3rd at the Mandalay Bay. And it was a unanimous decision for Hopkins. And before that, Danny Green knocked out Roy. He was knocked out. And then another guy knocked him out. I mean, Roy Jones Jr. was knocked out way too much. It all started with Antonio Tarver with the KO back in 2004. He stuck around too long. He's just one of those fighters where he had everything, all those gifts, and he had those quick twitch fibers, and he had that reaction time that was just so amazing. And it was like he could do things, like I said, he was so gifted, he can get away with these things. So once age crept in his early 30s against Tarver back in 2004, it was a no-go. He lost via a TKO. He won the first fight. That's why they had the rematch with Tarver, because a lot of observers thought, he got that decision on a win where Tarver arguably looked like he won, and you can make a case for that. So Roy Jones went up in heavyweight to fight a guy named John Ruiz, who was so boring. I saw him at the Garden once. I think it was the Garden. I swear I got up, I left. I went to get a hot dog or something. Actually, from my memory, I don't eat hot dogs like that, so I probably didn't. I probably got a coffee. But anyway, Roy Jones should have retired there. He should have got the heavyweight championship of the world, which he won in 2003, and retired. Instead, he went on to fight that fight with Tarver. He went back down in weight to fight the WB Super World Weight or whatever it was. I'm reading real quick. He had some titles, and he fought Tarver for those. And he should have just retired, because then inevitably he fought that rematch with Tarver, because the first fight was close and he got KO'd. And then it was all basically downhill from there. He had some wins in between this, and Joe Calzaghe beat him. Now, all the guys that beat Roy, in my opinion, would have never won straight up and down previous to that Ruiz fight where he got the heavyweight championship. He should have just retired. But did Roy need the money? I don't know how the man lives. He got a great job with HBO. What do they get paid? $200,000 a year at least. Enlighten me. I have no idea. I didn't even look it up. Roy Jones should have just retired there, because it did definitely taint his career. It's all these knockout losses. So on top of that, they're brain damaging losses. So I was just really happy to see this last Scott Sigmon fight the other night. Hopefully the last fight to vacate World Boxing Union German version of the cruiserweight title he got. I mean, we all know that title means nothing, but just for a man to start his career back in the day, his professional boxing career in 1989, guys, think about that. Just retired. He just was in the ring against a much younger guy. That's kind of embarrassing. I mean, this guy Scott, he's a fighter. You got to give him his props. But this guy's 30 years old. He can't beat Roy. Outclassed him at 49. That's a big achievement, regardless of how bad this fighter is. The guy's not a great fighter, obviously. He's losing to Roy, who's 49, basically 50. But Roy was that great. But Roy Jones Jr. should have retired. But thankfully he wasn't hurt. I mean, I don't even want it. They're cringe-worthy fights. Because every time he'd get in the ring after being knocked out by Tarver, and then again and again a few times, I would be like, oh my God, this is the time Roy's going to get permanently injured, like for real, and he's not going to even be able to do his commentating career on HBO. He's not going to be able to perform. By the way, this video is totally unedited. I'm just putting it up as is. I'm not editing anything, so if I mistake, if I fumble a word, whatever, excuse me. But guys, what I'm saying is Roy had a great career. In his day, he was amazing. And I always use this analogy that I made up. I always like to say, if you're a fighter, it's different. Because when you retire, it's hard to leave that ring. Because it's like if you're a painter or whatever you do, a cook, you could always paint. A painter could be 80 years old painting. But imagine being a painter, doing your art, and then all of a sudden one day you get about 30, 31 years old and you can't paint anymore. Things start to slow up and you lose that edge, and all of a sudden you stink at painting. And all your life you're making a career out of painting from being a teenager or whatever into your early 30s, and then all of a sudden you can't paint anymore and you're told you can't work anymore because you're a painter. I mean, how many people would continue to paint? A lot of people. So that's what it must be like for fighters. Hey, you can't work anymore. You can't get into that ring anymore. You're not going to be cheered and revered anymore. Think about that. And it's famous, like 15 minutes with a lot of these fighters. Sure, I mean, we recognize Floyd Mayweather. He's still out there, because that's different. Floyd Mayweather is like an anomaly. But with a lot of fighters, like Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, let me give you an example. Pernell, nobody knows who he is. The average person doesn't know, walking around outside of a hardcore boxing fan, who Sweet Pea is and was in the ring, what he did. People just don't really care, let's be honest. One time, I was in Atlantic City, and I saw Tracy Patterson, who had great wars with, I think, Gaddy. How many did he have? I don't know, one or two? Definitely one fight. Let's look him up real quick. Tracy Patterson. Okay, he had these fights with Arturo Gatti, the late great Gatti, who's gone, unfortunately, passed away in Brazil under suspicious circumstances. But Tracy had these fights with Gatti, right? On HBO. At least one of them was on HBO. Great fights. Okay, I'm looking at one fight. Excuse me. Forgive me. Oh, no, there's two. The first one was a 95, unanimous decision. Gatti lost. And then Arturo Gatti, unanimous decision. Sorry, Arturo Gatti beat him. And then he had a rematch a few years later, 1997. Anyway, my point is I saw Tracy Harris Patterson back then. He was known, right? Amongst boxing fans, especially at the time, he was hot. Not like Pernell Whitaker hot, but he was known. And then a couple years later, I'm down in Atlantic City, and I see Tracy. I go into an elevator. I see Tracy Harris Patterson standing there with a man in the elevator. Nobody gave a damn. Nobody stopped and looked at him. Then I seen him later on around the ring somewhere, outside in the lobby somewhere. I think it was in Bally's, one of these casinos, standing there looking for $20. He had some guy with him, $20 per photo and picture, autograph. And nobody was lining up. Let me tell you, it's so unfortunate. It's sad. So Pernell Whitaker, same thing. Like, who's thinking about Sweet Pea right now? Whether, you judge the man for what he did. He had some sobriety issues outside of the ring, other issues that didn't look too good. But my point is that people forget. So Roy got a great job. Nobody's forgetting about Roy. Roy's on HBO. But a lot of these guys, they just got to stop fighting and you forget about them. The famous 15 minutes with a lot of them, unless they have like a legendary, amazing Ali-esque type career, and they stay in the public eye like a Hopkins. But for the most part, a lot of these guys, you'll forget. Pernell Whitaker was he's still to this day one of my favorite fighters for what he did inside of the ring. Sweet Pea Whitaker, a southpaw. I mean, this guy was amazing. Now, I know I'm going off the subject a little bit. We're talking about Roy, but I just want to put this out there real quick. I think Lomachenko is one of the best fighters ever. Right now, I'm saying it. And why I'm putting that out there is because age will eventually beat everyone. I said that with Floyd. Age kicks in, and then boom, you're getting beat by age. That's the only thing that can beat great fighters like a Floyd Mayweather, like a Roy Jones Jr., like a Lomachenko. Great fighters, amazing, but Lomachenko I'm excited for. I'm excited to see how his career pans out. I'm going to try to upload another video really soon about Deontay Wilder, my prediction with Ortiz, how I'm going to break that down for you, and I'm adding that right here because that all is going to be a factor with age, because let's face it, Ortiz, that Deontay Wilder fight is no spring chicken in the boxing ring. He's really old. Okay, guys, so Roy Jones Jr., I'm very happy. He looks like he was not permanently injured in his last fight. Obviously, he wasn't. He survived it. He wasn't knocked out. He won. He looked great. And let's just hope the Roger Mayweather equation doesn't pop up. A fighter taking a lot of headshots, all of a sudden they get around 50, 60 years old. Things happen. Their brain, they get Parkinson's and things happen. They have damage. Their brains are damaged. But Roy Jones Jr., for the most part, speaks well still. A lot of people may disagree with that, but he speaks well enough to go on camera and do his thing. I mean, he sounds great to me. He sounds fine. He probably could out-talk me. So I'm happy because I'm a real fan of Roy Jones Jr. And really, it's kind of like emotional in a way for me to see his career finally end. Like, I'm glad. And it should have happened in 2004. This should have happened over 10 years ago, guys. This is way overdue. And let's just hope he doesn't come back. Because I remember Glenn Johnson, who ended up knocking out Roy Jones Jr., he retired on ESPN2 a couple years ago, and then he came back. He made his announcement, I'm retiring. Then he came back. So let's just hope he stays retired. And there's no happy, like, no, like, I'm returning to the ring for the big 50. One more fight. I can do it. Because he did look so good in that last fight the other night. Anyway, guys, I'm out. Hope all is well with you. And thanks for watching or listening. See you next time.